Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be checking out 5 times Larry Bird was injured but refused to quit. Guys, since I've been checking out Larry Bird on this channel, I knew about him before I ever watched the first video. I never really watched highlights of him, but I knew about him. I knew he was like a legend for the Celtics and all that. And from how he looked and from a few clips I saw before, he never looked like this tough, guy and all that stuff. But I've been so surprised by hearing about the fact that he was a tough guy. He was this guy that played through injury, was a trash talker, all this stuff that if you look at him, you wouldn't really be able to guess. You can't guess. You would look at him, you can't guess that this guy could be like this. So I'm really looking forward to this one. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button, and if you love this reaction, help me out and hit that like button. It really helps me out. I really appreciate it. Let's get right into it.
To his credit, he gets up and fights through it and goes out there and plays, but he is not a healthy person right now.
I've never met an athlete that would play with pain the way he does, and an athlete that's so highly self-motivated as Larry Bird.
I think 4 or 5 years you'll think back about what he did, or you'll just, you'll go that. I think it's one of those things that as the years go by, it'll become bigger and bigger and bigger.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today I'm back with another video. For this time, once again, we have to talk about Larry Legend, one of my favorite players of all time. And I think even the most casual NBA fan knows that Larry Bird in his career was a very tough player, and he overcame tremendous adversity as well as injuries. And I wanted to make a very quick video explaining how tough Larry Bird was and just some of the big time injuries he overcame. So with that being said, let's get into the video and look at 5 times Larry Bird overcame injuries and absolutely dominated. So the first injury we're going to look at is from 1979, before Larry Bird was even in the NBA. And this injury occurred in a friendly softball game with Larry Bird's brother as well as friends. And here's Jackie McMullen explain this very bizarre and peculiar injury.
Well, he shows up, and who's on the other team but his brother? So Larry's playing out in the outfield, and his brother hits this kind of spinning, looping ball, almost like a Tim Wakefield knuckleball. It's just spinning all over the place. And Larry tries to go down and make a basket catch, and his finger goes all the way back, and he's like, man, wow, it really hurts. And he looked down, and his finger was completely dislocated and mangled, and, it really was bothering him. He had to stop playing right away. And so now remember, he's been drafted by the Celtics during this point, but he has not signed a contract yet. So,
which is very
his finger is in a bad way. He has to have major surgery
because that one is very important. That particular fact that she just made is very important. He hasn't signed the contract. He hasn't earned his money yet. So that is very, very important.
And pins and everything else, and he never tells the Celtics this has happened. But sooner or later they get word, and they summon him to Boston. And the trainer examines him and says, and the team doctor examines him, and they say to Red Auerbach, this guy's damaged goods. Now, Red's like, really? So he says, come on, Larry, get dressed. So Larry puts on his stuff. Red throws him the ball. He goes out. He starts shooting from all over the floor. He's hitting from everywhere. Throws him a few bounce passes, has him throws a few overhead passes, and he said, you look fine to me, kid. And Bird said, great. But Bird, to this day, will tell you, he's never had the same feel for the basketball.
So obviously a pretty bad finger injury that affected Bird for the rest of his life. And around 2010, Larry Bird gave an interview and said his finger to this day is shaped like a boomerang at a 45-degree angle pointing towards his thumb. And he's had 2 surgeries that have failed to straighten it out. But I think the most intriguing thing in that clip is that Larry Bird himself said he never had the same feel for the basketball after this injury. And Bird, for his career already, was one of the best shooters of all time. He was the first player ever to win the 50-40-90 club, and he routinely shot over 90% from the line. But with that being said, Bird actually could have been a better shooter than he was in the NBA if it wasn't for that devastating finger injury.
I mean, can you imagine how, like, if from what Bird is saying, that particular injury affected him for the rest of his life, can you imagine how great of a shooter he would have been? He was already great. He was already legendary at that point. I mean, the kind of shooting numbers that Bird had at that point in time when shooting was not even a thing. And all that was under a handicap of having an injury that affected him for the rest of his life. That is really impressive.
Up on the Bird injury list, we go to his back, one of the worst injuries a player could ever have.
Yeah.
And this injury for Bird occurred in 1985 in the middle of his prime. And here's his doctor, as well as a few commentators, talking about how tough Bird was and how difficult it was for him to even play a basketball game.
Larry had two jobs his last 7 years of playing. It was playing basketball, and then it was him being committed to taking care of his back.
He had first heard it in 1985, building the driveway at his mom's house back in French Lick.
Larry decides to do it himself. This is Larry Bird, the superstar, out there breaking his back, literally shoveling gravel. And that was the beginning of a process.
I would see him on TV laying down, and then they told me that he had to lay down on planes, different things like that. And I was like, wow.
As Magic soared through the prime of his career, Bird was breaking down. His deteriorating back and punishing style of play proving an excruciating mix.
From 88 to 92, it was painful to watch. It was painful to cover. Larry is quite ornery when he's not feeling well, which means he was ornery for those next 4 years.
He could manage the pain in a way that very few people can do.
If you get paid to go to work, you got to go to work.
It was a situation that he was seeing almost daily. He had lost the structural stability in his spine, so it would slip into abnormal positions to try and lock itself to get an artificial stability.
And
that's
it was
like getting
playing.
your finger stuck in the door, and somebody's still pushing on the door. So what we had to do was unlock his spine, realign it, do techniques that would hold that for 4 hours, 6 hours, that type of thing, and then he'd go play basketball.
So obviously that back injury was pretty devastating for Bird, and it kind of marked the end of his prime. But even with that being said, Bird in his last 7 seasons still put up tremendous stats, averaging 25.1 points per game, 9.3 boards,
That is
7.0
crazy.
assists on near 50-40-90
Look at these
splits.
stats. Look at these stats. At that time. This is crazy. This guy was so great. This guy was so great. This after, like, when you could say maybe he was deteriorating. Wow.
Those stats right there from an offensive perspective are still some of the best stats of all time. And once again show Bird could handle pain like few athletes ever. And one of the most remarkable things I've ever heard comes from Larry Bird's former teammate, that being Robert Parrish. According to Parrish, Larry Bird never took painkillers, pills, or any shots in his entire career.
What the hell?
Bird simply toughed it out and showed mental toughness as well as physical toughness and played basketball at the highest level for 7 more years. Now also one thing Larry Bird was known for in his career was being mentally tough. And here's a quick story from Kevin McHale talking about Larry Bird's mental toughness after being stuck down in an airport for 10 straight hours.
Back then when we flew commercial, we didn't fly private, we played in a Tuesday night game in Cleveland. And of course we got up for the first flight out. We had a game on Wednesday night in New Jersey. Snowstorm hits Cleveland. We're at the airport at 7 in the morning. Flight's canceled at 7. It's canceled at 8. It's canceled at 9. It's canceled at 10. Canceled at 11, 12. We finally leave about 1:30 or 2 in the afternoon. We fly up to New Jersey. Now the storm has kind of moved into Jersey. And the bus driver says, well, I can't get to the hotel into the arena. I can only go to one place. Well, we had a game that night. We go to the arena. So we get to the arena, and I mean, we're dragging. And we're sitting around the locker room, and, and everybody's kind of, we're tired. And, and all of a sudden, the coach gives a little bit of a speech of, come on, man, guys, we're playing basketball. Let's get ready to go. And Larry stands up, and Larry says, a couple other few choice words, and he says, I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to take it out on their rear ends.
Whoa.
So I was like, oh, all right, so let's go. So we go on the floor. Elbert King sitting there. Larry walks up to Elbert King and goes, don't take this butt whooping personally. I've been eating hot dogs all day. And then Elbert King was like, you've been eating hot dogs all day? What's that got to do with me? And we went out and just hammered them. I mean, we terrorized them. And that was Larry. There was no excuses. I mean, he just played. And I tell you, that was just his competitive nature. But a day when you fly all day and eat hot dogs in the airport, best thing was Elbert's look on his face like, what hot dogs got to do with me?
And that story from Kevin McHale, for the most part,
Wow.
is pretty comical, but I think it still shows Larry Bird had extreme mental toughness. And when it came to playing basketball, he would give it his best every single night. And I actually went back to Larry Bird's game charts, and I found this game from 1986 on April 13th. In this game, Boston beat New Jersey by 28 points. Larry Bird had 26, 4, and 3 on 64% shooting.
Wow.
And he didn't miss a single three-pointer or a single free throw. And what makes it even more impressive to me is this game versus New Jersey was the last game of the season. Bird could have easily packed it in and waited for the playoffs, but still, he wanted to play this game for his teammates as well as his coaches. And that year in '86, Larry Bird didn't miss a single game, playing all 82. And if you compare that mindset from Bird to the modern day players, it's simply night and day.
Yeah.
I pretty much guarantee
Yeah. That one is very, very true. I mean, like, some of these things I see some of these modern day players do, it's so frustrating. Like, and I'm not in any position to question any of these people. Like, I'm a nobody. So let me just put that out there first. But it's really disappointing, the ungracefulness that a lot of these modern players have. Because the likes of Bird, Magic, Michael Jordan made sacrifices for these modern day players to earn all this money that they're earning. And they're out here. I mean, look at Ben Simmons. Like, seriously, like, that is just ridiculous. It's really, really ridiculous and embarrassing. And it's a shame. It's a shame. If I were a Bird or Magic or any of these guys that actually was responsible for making the NBA to be this international powerhouse, players being able to earn $40 million, $50 million a year, this is all because of these guys. And you have these players that are now reaping these benefits, not taking it seriously, taking it for granted. And they could ruin the future of the NBA for the future players that are coming in. I mean, anyway.
any modern day superstar would 100% sit out that game and rest for the playoffs, but not Larry Bird. And when talking about Larry Bird in his prime, 1980 to 86, really before his big time injuries, he played 561 out of 574 games.
Look at
he played all 82 games 3 times and over 36 minutes per game every single year. In 2 years, he actually led the NBA in minutes per game. So back in the day, Larry Bird, if he could walk, he was 100% suiting up and playing basketball. But the one time in Bird's career where he simply couldn't.
Now players, if they just feel some kind of way, they won't play. You know why they don't play? Because if they play now, their scoring average or their stats average may be affected. I think players are more. I just wish a lot of these older players were like, oh my guy Kobe was also as calculative as these current players now. Some players are not, they're not fully fit, but they can play. But they choose not to play because they want to maintain their average, their stats average. They want to maintain it, so they don't want to dent it by coming to play maybe limited minutes and spoiling it. It's ridiculous, man.
Could not play was in 1989. This year, Larry Bird had severe bone spurs. He had what many people thought was a broken foot, and he had double Achilles surgery. And back in the day, an Achilles injury
was
could possibly be the end of your career.
Yeah.
But once again, not for Larry Bird. As the following year, he had a very great and underrated season, averaging 24.3 points per game, 9.5 boards, 7.5 assists, while playing 75 games at 39.3 minutes per game, while leading the NBA in free throw percentage. So even after all those injuries, Larry Bird once again came back to all-star form, and he overcame double Achilles surgery. Now the last Bird injury we have is in 1991, and this injury is also the last great Larry Bird moment in the 91 playoffs versus the Indiana Pacers. And to kind of set the stage, in this series, Boston, they were heavily favored, but in games 1 through 4, Bird was not playing up to par, only averaging 18 points per game, 9 assists, 8 boards, on 37% shooting, and 11% from 3. And back in the day in the first round, it was a best-of-5 series, so Game 5 was a winner-take-all game. And near halftime of this game, Larry Bird would go down with a severe head injury, possibly a broken cheekbone, as well as a mild concussion.
Right here, the swipe knocks it free. Bird on the floor, then left hand but he stays down for a long time. Effort by Larry Bird.
And Larry Bird is headed directly to the locker room for treatment.
But in typical Larry Bird fashion, he would tough it out and come back in the middle of the third quarter.
And here comes Larry Bird.
I think I saw that in that video I watched.
Out of the pages of Willis Reed in Game 5 of the championship series involving the Knicks and the Lakers in 69-70.
And in this Game 5 in the Boston Garden, from that moment on, Larry Bird would dominate for the remaining 18 minutes of that game, having 17 points, 7 boards and 5 assists, on 60% shooting, leading Boston to a 3-point win. And that Game 5 versus Indy is the last great Larry Bird moment as he overcame injury and dominated in that second half.
Okay, now I have to check the trash talking video very soon. I have to do that. I mean, like, this guy, every video I watch about this guy, I'm always very, very shocked. So many things that I see, I'm always very, very shocked and surprised by how just different this guy was built. And it doesn't look it. That's the thing. Like, there are people that, you know, you will see them and you would be able to predict that this person could be like that. But when you see him, he doesn't have that look. Doesn't have that tough, savage look. But he was actually tough and savage. That is actually crazy. Man. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the reaction. If you did, hit the like button. Guys, it doesn't take anything from you. Just hit that like button. I really appreciate it. Please, guys.